Okay, here's just an introduction to our rhythmic subdivisions. This is a whole note. Let's say that a whole note is 1. Okay? A half note, there are always 2 half notes that make up the duration of the whole note. That's why they're called half notes. They are 1/2 of the whole. So if a whole note is 1, a half note is 1/2. If a whole note is 4, a half note is 2 because you just divide it in half. So for each half note, you have 2 quarter notes. And 4 quarter notes make up 1 whole note. Right? So if a whole note is 1, a quarter note is 1/4 because it is 1/4 of the whole note. Here in our more common time signature, if a whole note is 4, a quarter note is 1. Okay, from there are 2 eighth notes for every quarter note. And there are 8 eighth notes per whole note. So if our whole note is 1, our eighth note is 1/8 because they are literally 1/8 of the whole note. So in this time, the eighth note is worth 1/2 of a beat. And we can take it one step farther. For every eighth note, there are 2 16th notes, which means there are 16 16th notes because they are 1/16th of the whole note. And 1/4 of a beat if it's 4. So no matter what the value of the note value in terms of beats is, a half is always 1/2 of the whole. This is always 1/4 of the whole, 1/8 of the whole, and 1/16th of the whole. If you're moderately good at math, every time you go down, you're dividing the note length by 2, right? So this is 4 divided by 2. This would be 2 divided by 2 is 1, then 1/2, then 1/4. If our whole note was worth 100, our half note would be 50. And 25, this is a bad example, 12.5, etc. Right? So let's say our whole note is worth 64. 64, 32, 16, 8, 4. And I just get those numbers because I divide every step of the way I go down. So regardless of what the time signature is, the notes always have this relationship. That is, the half note is half of the whole, the quarter note is half of the half, the eighth note is half of the quarter, and the 16th is half of the eighth. Okay? So when we talk about subdividing, we're basically saying how many of the smallest note is in the next note. Right? So if I have these 16th notes, let's step back for a second. So if I'm now in 4/4 time, and we'll talk about time signatures later, that means we have 4 beats per minute, and the quarter note equals 1, and the whole note equals 4. Okay? So my quarter notes each line up with 1 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Within those beats, we have the eighth notes. Sorry, my writing is not that great. And when we call notes that are directly between 2 beats, and half the beats, we're going to call those ands. If we break it down even further to our 16th notes, we're going to make it 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So if we break a beat down into 4 parts, E and a are the 1 E and a, 2 E and a, those are the 4 parts. If we break a beat down into halves, 2 parts, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And those numbers go up to however many beats there are in a measure. All right? So what I'm saying is these 4 quarter notes, or 16th notes, these 4 16th notes equal this quarter note. If I put them all together, within that quarter note is 1 E and a. So that's what we're saying when we're subdividing, is that within that quarter note is 4 16th note parts, or 2 eighth note parts. So going back to our pyramid up here, how many 16th notes are there in a quarter note? Well, there's 2 16ths in an eighth, and there's 2 eighths in a quarter, so there are 4 16ths in a quarter, right? Because I just if there's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. There are 16 16ths in a whole, there are 8 16ths in a half, 4 in a quarter, and 2 in an eighth. Again, it just divides and multiplies by 2 every step up and down you go. So, if I have a rhythmic example and I want to count this whole thing by 16th notes, which is a good way so that I know exactly when these pulses are going, I say, okay, how many 16th notes are in these quarters? There are 4. So if the 16th notes are 1, E, and I put all 4 of those together. Here's 2, this is 2, E, and for this quarter note. 3, E, and Okay, so each of these 8th notes equals 2 16ths. So 3 E, that's 2, and that's 2, and this is 4. 4 E and Okay, a better way to put it would be within this whole measure is 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, so I'm going to write out 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a across this whole measure, but I know that 4 of those go to this quarter, the next 2 go here, the next 2 go here. Each one of these 16th notes gets 1 part, and then this gets 4. Hopefully this is all making sense. Some of you may not have split it up that much. If we don't split it up that much, okay, I know that this is 2 beats, so 1. This is then going to be on 3. This is half of a beat, 3 and then 4 and. Now I like to put the subdivisions within my beats, right? So this is 1 and 2 and. That tells me that within this half note is 1 and 2 and. So when I'm counting, I know when 3 is going to be because I'm thinking 1 and 2 and 3, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Same thing with these guys. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can feel that out. This is 1 and the E is in there. 2 E and is all in there. Etc. all the way to 4 E and. Now what you're noticing is that I'm underlining multiple subdivisions that go with the same note. Hopefully this makes sense. If you can fill out the Google form just so I can get a feel, don't be afraid to be wrong, just so I can get a feel of where you are and what we might need to reteach, etc.